N.T. Wright's book, The Paul Debate. Critical questions for understanding the apostle. This is lean and mean. No fat in this book. It's 107 pages, and one of the really, really good reads on the Apostle Paul and how to understand him. I think Wright has just been really, really good stuff. So I would recommend a read of The Paul Debate, Critical Questions for Understanding the Apostle by N.T. Wright. It'll make you think. It's really, really good stuff. Also, this book right here called The Case for Jesus by Brent, The Biblical and Historical Evidence for Christ. He's a Catholic scholar, but I will say this for Pitry, he studied under Amy Jill Levine at Vanderbilt, who is a New Testament scholar, Jewish non-believer, but she's New Testament scholar and really good stuff. And because she's Jewish, Jewish flavor comes through and bleeds through everywhere. In fact, he wrote another book called Jesus and the Jewish Roots of the Eucharist. So he gets the Jewish roots part. Now he's Catholic because that's his tradition, but this book does a great job on discussing the historicity of the Gospels and how they are authentic and historic and why we should rely upon them. So I recommend both those to you, both The Case for Christ and then The Paul Debate by N.T. Wright. I like to do book recommendations as things come along that I think are worthy of reading. I don't want to recommend things that are just, busy things just to keep you busy. But this seemed to be necessary to me, so I try to make sure that what I do recommend is books that you will benefit from and that will be a blessing. Go with me to Exodus chapter 30. Exodus chapter 30, we're going to work our way through some of this text really quick. Just making some initial comments here. Exodus chapter 30, verse 11. And we have in this text, the half shekel. Every male from the age of 20 and years old and above has to bring the half shekel. And we know that this half shekel was for the purpose of two things. It was for the purpose of helping the tabernacle, so that there was money to repair and do upkeep on the tabernacle. And it was also a census of the aged individuals, men, that were able to fight. So it served two purposes. And over here I have the half shekel that I mentioned earlier. This has been minted by Reuben Prager of Beged Ivri. And one of the things I appreciate about Reuben is that, notice the text says that every person, whether they're rich or whether they're poor, brings a half shekel. And one of the messages that comes out of this is this: every person is a half shekel.
They are equal.
Equal. Doesn't matter whether you're smart or dumb, rich or poor, big house, little house, nice car, skateboard. Everybody in the eyes of God, half shekel. If everybody in the world viewed each other as equals, we wouldn't have war. Because you don't destroy somebody you think is your equal. You only destroy people you think are below you. But if everybody considered themselves and said, you know what, no matter what, you're a half shekel, I'm a half shekel, everybody is a half shekel, there would be equality. We would view each other with dignity and respect, and we would see that it didn't matter whether you were this nationality or that nationality, whether you were male or female, whether you were the boss or whether you were the worker. Look at all the labor problems we've had in the world because people thought, well, I'm the boss, I'm up here, so I can treat these people that work for me any way I want to. I'm this much and they're this much. But it's like, no, what? Everybody's a half shekel. So Reuben has been minting the half shekel. And one of the things I appreciate about Reuben is the history that he puts into the coins. With that, I didn't bring the other book in here. I just had a book I was reading on on coins from the Bible. And one of the beautiful things about coins, it's the history of coins is called, the study of coins is called numismatics. And one of the beautiful things we have archaeologically is we have coins from the time before Christ all the way through and past, so that we can look at and touch in our hands archaeologically these coins, and they tell us, they have dates on them, they have images on them, and they tell us about the history of the area. So it's fascinating. I'm reading a book now, I just got to reading a book called Coins of the Bible. And these coins tell all kinds of stories. And look at how many times in the Bible we have narratives that deal with money, with coins. They're all over the place. We don't have time to go into all those right now, but there's a lot of them that deal with coinage and with money. So anyway, I encourage you to go to Reuben's site and look at his half shekels, and fascinating. So you can take a look at this later on. He's minting these, and I think it's really cool that he's bringing these back to show us. And by the way, what he's been putting on them are, he's imprinting them with past images from coins that predate and or at the time of the first revolt, which is in 66 AD, the second revolt in 132 AD. He's gone back and re-minted, in a sense, so that we can keep the history. Yes.
What are the shekel made of that he's using now?
It's got some silver in it. He could tell you on his website. He tells you the makeup of the coin.
And what is his website?
begedivri.com, and we can put that out there. Well, I'll put that out there as too when we put out the information.
Yep.
So www.begedivri, BEGEDIVRE, garments, Beged, garments, Ivri, Israel, and then .com. So, yeah, good stuff. He's got a lot of really good stuff. I'm going to mention one of the other things here in just a moment, but we can see that from the scriptures that these coins, these shekels, which are here a unit of weight, later on they become coins, where he says every male 20 years of age and upward has to give these, and we find out later on that they go to the upkeep of the temple, and they go to tell us, when we count the shekels, we know how many individuals there are that are of the age that can fight in the Israel's army. When we get to Matthew chapter 17, you'll notice that Yeshua is approached with those from the temple asking, does your master pay the tax? It would seem that Yeshua and Peter do not have the shekel with them. Okay? Now, by this time it's become a coin. So Yeshua says something interesting. You can read all that later on, but he says this. He says to Peter, go and cast in a hook. They're up in Capernaum, which tells me that we're now dealing with the Galilee, Sea of Galilee, just by location. So go and cast in a hook and take up the first fish, and in the mouth of that fish you're going to find a coin, and that coin will be a full shekel. Give that to them for you and me. So it can. Now here's what's fascinating. And I've said this before. Yeshua, by this miracle, now how do you throw in a line into the Sea of Galilee, and there's a fish that's going to have a 1 shekel coin in its mouth? And he says, take that shekel out of the fish's mouth and pay it for you and I. So, I mean, that in of itself is a miracle. That you can throw in a line and find a fish with a shekel in its mouth. That's the first thing. That's a miracle. But here's here's something I want to point out to you. Yeshua pays the half shekel tax for Peter. I've said it this way before, and I think it bears much repeating, is that I want all of us, this is the goal is to get to the place where not only do we want to keep Torah for ourselves, but we want to help others keep it as well. And we're willing to help others do it. It's not enough just to do it ourselves, but then to help other people and, in a sense, pay their way. Pay it forward. To help them also be able to observe it. Nothing in the Torah said that somebody else couldn't pay it for you. You just had to have a coin there representing you. And later on, we're going to find in the book of Acts that Paul pays for those who had entered into a Nazirite vow. It just had to be paid. Torah didn't really care who paid for it necessarily. Somebody had to pay for it. But if somebody else can pay it for you, hey, that's great. It's all good. So, we're seeing here Yeshua demonstrating that not only does he want to keep Torah, not only does he keep it, but that he's helping another person keep it as well and be obedient to it. Yeah.
So you had, back then when Yeshua was doing that, you had a whole, everybody was wanting to follow Torah in one way or another.
Sure.
Today,
hopefully.
So how do you today, in a world where people don't see the value in Torah anymore, how can you go about, all my friends and family for that matter, don't see the value in keeping the Torah? So how do you go about helping them keep it, but then also see the value in it too?
Both of those are challenges, to be sure. And I think one of the things you can do is, I think we can educate gently, and part of it is just by how we live our life. Hopefully, at some level. I'll give you an example. My family wouldn't see the value in any of this. And I shouldn't say any of it. On many things that I would hold of importance and of value. I think what you can do, though, is in teachable moments, without shoving it down anybody's throat, is to say, when they ask, especially, why do you do what you do, then at that point, when you have a teachable moment, is to say, you know what, I simply find value in what the Word of God has spoken, and I think it has value in and of itself. Not to, and again, I think we have to be careful to make sure we say to people, this is not a salvation issue, this is not a, you'll go to heaven because of this. That's not the issue. So I think, like with my own sister, I just have to be very, very gracious and very, very kind and just try to educate gently and humbly when I have teachable moments. And since our time there overlapped for about 3 days in Alaska, she was coming in as I was leaving, but we had about 3-day overlap. And we were able to go out together and we would just talk, and so it's a tough one because it's, like I said, it's a challenge to say, how do I help people who've never heard Torah or really never been trained or taught? How do I help them to come along, learn, and in many places, and many times it may be just handing somebody a book and saying, hey, read this and tell me what you think. Starting with that, and maybe even sometimes I just give people books that are where they're showing the Jewishness of Jesus. That Jesus was a Jew, and that he kept Torah. You can start with that, and then try to prime the pump on those places. That's what I try to do, and then as I live it out, hopefully talk to them and have times where I say, here's why I do what I do, and like I've had people at the church I attend on Sunday stop me and say, they'll say, well, I've had a couple of them say, hey, so what's with the strings? I don't know what they just call them strings. I don't know what they are. Okay, that's a teachable moment because they've asked. So just the fact that I'm learning them, they ask, and then I say, oh, you know what? It's a great question. It's in the Bible, and then I walk them through the Bible. And I get them to Jesus. And when they see that it connects to him, then they kind of go, oh, okay. I think one of the things Messianics have not done a good job at times, and this is my own personal angst, is that I think at times, because we came out of traditional Christianity, we've done a really, really poor job of connecting Torah back to Yeshua and showing how he kept it. Because they say, well, I love Jesus. I say, great. You know what? You love Jesus? So do I.